Hello everyone and welcome to Stan the Wineman TV. I'm your host Stan Rattan and this is the Blue Collar Wine Program where I hope to help you spend your wine dollars wisely. We're going to do a Chardonnay episode today. Chardonnay is still the #1 selling varietal in the United States, and I am going to do a Chardonnay from Burgundy, a Chardonnay from California, and a Chardonnay from Washington. Cover the whole gamut. Well, not the whole gamut. We got Argentina, we got all these places. Chile does some good Chardonnay. We got a bunch of different places for Chardonnay. But typical wine snob ease statement would be ABC, anything but Chardonnay. A lot of people, for whatever reason, think that it's very cool, very vogue to say I don't like Chardonnay. But guess what? Chardonnay is still the #1 selling wine. We sell a ton of it at my store, a ton of Chardonnay. And you know, the thing about it, this is the fall time. We're going into fall. We're going into fall, believe it or not. It's a beautiful day today, but we're going into fall. And you know, people are going to be starting to cook some more comfort foods. They're going to do some like roasted chicken, some different things like that. Of course, you have Thanksgiving coming up. You got Christmas. Anyway, Chardonnay plays a big role in those holidays. It plays a big role in, you know, roasted chicken and Chardonnay. I'm telling you what, there is nothing better. And we went through the summertime, crab and Chardonnay, lobster and Chardonnay. They're excellent, excellent pairings. You know, I like Chardonnay. I like all different styles of Chardonnay, and of course, like with everybody's palate, we switch back and forth. Sometimes we like them a little oaky, sometimes we like them a little buttery, sometimes we like them no oak. You know, it changes. I'm sure if you were honest with yourself, you would say your palate changes from time to time. You know, don't get stuck in a rut. Never get stuck in a rut. So, the debate goes on. And I've talked about this a couple times, and just briefly, should I review these Chardonnays at closer to room temperature, or should I review them chilled? I prefer to review them on the chilled side because, this is the only reason, because I know 99.9% of you, and that could be an exaggeration, let's go back to, let's say 94% of you are going to drink your Chardonnays on the chilled side. And probably colder than I'm tasting them, but still, most of you will drink them chilled. So when I review a Chardonnay, I want to review it like you are going to taste it. Make sense? Makes sense to me. And I discovered, you know, just not too long back, I discovered that I think the winemaker, and I actually talked to a couple winemakers about this. I said, do you make your Chardonnays to be drunk on the chilled side? And they said, of course, this is the way we build them. To be fair to the winemaker, I understand why some reviewers like to go to the room temperature side. You get more aromatics, you get some more things out of it. But guess what? If you go to the warmer side, sometimes that oak will just overtake that wine and destroy it. Whereas the winemaker knew they were going to be, you know, I'm not going to beat it at a horse. We're going to do it. The other debate is, should I be doing more blind tastings? I know a lot of you like the blind format. I like doing it because sometimes it surprises me, not always. It doesn't always surprise me. But as a wine reviewer, as somebody that I consider myself a professional wine taster, I don't care what the label says. I don't care what the price is. I just care what goes into my mouth. And, you know, the only time I ever have a hard time is when the winemaker's there. So when I do an interview, I do not grade the wines, because I feel with the winemaker there, the representative from the winery, you know, I'm going to be a little bit biased. It's human nature. Come on. It is. So when I'm doing them, though, behind my bar, at my home, reviewing them on YouTube, you know, guess what? Sometimes price does have an effect. If it's a $30, $40 white or red, you know, I want it to deliver more for the money. That's just human nature, and I think it's right. I think we should demand more for the money. You're paying for a Porsche, you want it to deliver. You're paying for a Chevy Cavalier or whatever. They probably don't even exist anymore. I'm dating myself. You know, you're not expecting as much out of that car. Same is true with wine. Spending 10 bucks, if that thing over delivers, you are more than happy. If you're spending $50 to $100, you want it to deliver. You want it to deliver. And if it doesn't deliver for the money, guess what? It's not going to get a better grade. So that's the way I go about it. If you want to make a comment, fine. I don't get a huge amount of comments. I know I'm starting to work this. I want more comments. I want more viewership. I'm working on it. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to be persistent, and I am going to get this channel really rocking. That is my goal. Let's get started. We're going to start right off with Burgundy. We're going to do La Côte Blanche. Macon Village. Now Macon Village is down in a little further south in the Burgundy region of France. Macon Villages are cool because they're Chardonnay. This one actually says Chardonnay on it. A lot of them don't. So you know, you have Chablis way up in the north of Burgundy. Then you have the Côte de Beaune. Then you have Côte de Chardonnay. And then you have the Macon area. And this is Macon Villages, which is in the villages of Macon. Let me have you look at the label. The nice thing about these is that this is $11, which is really a steal for a Chardonnay from Burgundy, France. A lot of them go for a lot more money than that. And very typical, splashed all over the place. Very typical of white Burgundies is they do not use a predominant amount of oak. And for $11, you wouldn't expect that. And just a quickie on the price of wine. If they use new oak, a new French oak barrel will go for around, 2 episodes in a row with an animal interruption. Amazing. The more oak you use, the more it's going to cost, because a new French oak barrel goes for $1,000 or more. So you understand that cost has to be, you know, put into the wine. The fruit source, how much is a fruit per ton, all has to do with that. So those are factors that have to do with wine. So it's amazing to get a Burgundy for $11. And what I like about this wine, right off the bat, on the nose, I get white flowers, a little bit of wet stone. I get some pears coming through. A little bit of melon. Kind of even a baking spice element, which is kind of amazing because baking spices come from oak. Very, very pleasant aromatics on this wine. Some white flowers. Let's see what we get on the palate. Very interesting wine. From the nose, I would have thought a little bit more malolactic, maybe some oakiness. Immediately, very austere. Get lemon, lime, melon, crushed rock. Major acidity on this one. Not cutting, not laser sharp, but the acidity is there. Dries out my mouth. Get a little kiwi action going through on this one. Very, very tart would be the word that you might use for this one. I can see this one really matching up with clams, oysters. You know, there's just a tiny, tiny hit of creaminess on the mid palate. Finishes with kiwi. It reminds me, I was in Madrid at the hotel, had some kiwi for breakfast, and that was a little underripe. This is really close to underripe kiwi with a little bit of like lime rind coming through. For those of you that are into the buttery, kind of oaky Chardonnays from Cali, maybe from Washington, you will not like this wine. I'm not saying you won't like it, but it will not be what you're expecting from a Chardonnay. But for those of you looking for a refreshing, solid, acidic, well-built Chardonnay, I think you'll like it. Very, very fresh on the palate. Yeah, that minerality, that wet stone comes through big time. I could drink this by itself because that's just who I am. But I'd love to have this with, like I said, with mussels, winkles, barnacles, clams, oysters. It would be fantastic. I'm going to go B on that one. Good example of Chardonnay from Burgundy. Let's move on to the next one. Now we're going into Cali. And I wasn't sure whether to put Cali in front of Washington or Washington in front of Cali. We're going to find out. We're going to find out. Where do we get that gonna? I'm gonna find out. We're going to find out. This again is $11. It is Handcraft Winery Artisan Collection Chardonnay 2010. And this is from the Delicato family. And this is Cheryl in Delicato is the founder. And a lot of this money is actually donated for breast cancer research. She was a nurse at one time, decided to go from there into the wine business because her family, Delicato family, is huge in the wine business. And so she donates some of the proceeds to cancer research. Let's see what we get on the nose. So this has kind of that fake buttery butterscotch thing right off the bat. That's the first thing I thought of. A little bit of a, yeah. Kind of pears, pineapple, but it's a little fakey on the nose. And I don't really know how to define when I say fake, but it doesn't smell, you know, like we have real butterscotch and we have like the Smucker's butterscotch, you know, it's like a little bit of fabricated flavors, you know, like I can't believe it's not butter versus real butter. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Kind of that not the real deal, sort of like, you know, kind of a fakey imitation. Definitely a lot of pineapple on this one. Getting a touch of baking spices. Again, I can't imagine they used a lot of new oak or any of that because it's only $11, which, you know, unless they're giving it away, you know, they use neutral oak on this one, 2-3-year oak. Now this family makes a lot of wine. I'm sure they have a lot of oak barrels that they have at their disposal to use. Let's see what we got. They could even use oak spindles, oak chips, whatever they decide to use. Let's go on and let's see what we get on the palate. A little better in the mouth. I get kind of a toasty oakiness, which is interesting. Get a lot of pineapple. Pineapple comes right at first. You get that kind of buttery thing, a little malolactic fermentation giving it a creamy texture. But then you get that really like that pineapple butterscotch hit on the back of the mid going into the finish. You get a little pear action, like Bartlett pear, coming through right in the kind of after the mid palate into the finish a little bit. It's very kind of toasty on the backside, which is interesting. I think there's a lot of you out there that will like this wine for $11, which is a great value. I think it goes probably for a little under that. You could probably get it for closer to $10 in some stores. You know, not exactly my style of Chardonnay, but I think it has good balance. I think it stays in that safe zone, you know, where it doesn't get too carried away with oak. Doesn't get too sweet with the fruit. I'm going to go B- on that one. For $11, B-, C+, kind of B- to the C+ side. Not bad. I think there's a lot of you that probably will like that Chardonnay. Now let's move on to Washington State. And we're going to go to a, what I would call, probably for lack of better terms, an iconic Chardonnay producer. You will find this Chardonnay on many, many restaurant lists. By the glass. Waterbrook Winery 2013 Chardonnay Columbia Valley. And this rolls in at $14 US. And once again, a very iconic producer of Chardonnay in Washington State. They're based out of Walla Walla. This Columbia Valley fruit, as most of them do, because, you know, Columbia Valley fruit is very expensive, and you can get some really good deals out of Columbia Valley on Chardonnay fruit. Let's see what we get on the nose. This definitely has some baking spices. I get a little bit of ginger and pear. Just a skosh of butterscotch. I really like that ginger aspect, and this is one of the things that oak does contribute to a Chardonnay. It will give it a very ginger kind of appeal on the nose, and this reminds me of like fresh ginger. Maybe even a little bit of like almost a nutmeg element, which I find very intriguing. Let's see what we get on the palate. This one ramps up the oak a little bit more than the handcraft. You can definitely get that out of it. You get that kind of a woody edge to it, but it is pretty well balanced. It doesn't go over the top oak. It has a nice pear element. Those baking spices come through. I get a little nutmeg and ginger and butterscotch. Good balance. I think it's getting close to over the top on the oak. Curious on the oak treatment on this one. I get a little pineapple on the back of the mid palate. Good balance. Like I said, guys, it's like just about to tip over on too much oak. But I think a lot of you guys that like the oak in your Chardonnay will like the Chardonnay. It doesn't go over the top. It stays in balance. It's close, but not too far. I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna go B on that wine. I really like it. I think it's for $13. It's good value. As I do with the handcraft, nose not so much. You know, palate, and then of course we go to the Macon Village, which is an entirely different animal than either one of these. Totally lean, more for shellfish. You know, Chardonnay is an amazingly versatile grape, and you can find all different styles, from lean, like the Macon Village, all the way to big, round, buttery, smooth, like the Rombauer Chardonnay. You know, thanks for watching. Cheers, and here's to keeping the snob out of wine.